Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday episode of the DDT, also known as the Daily Dirty 30 here on the Kevin Lee Show. Anyways, you'll notice my background looks a little different. I'm doing things a little different today. I'm having too many technical difficulties with my other setup, so I decided that I'm going to simply try this out and see how it works. Hopefully it's good. Anyways, today we are going to be talking about cancel culture. Now, I know this is a term you're probably familiar with. And that being said, it's probably a subject that you have a strong attitude towards. You're either completely for it or completely against it. I myself am a little torn. I mean, I'm not for cancel culture. Let me just say that on the outset that I'm not. But that being said, I have issues with not being able to call people out for their behavior. Does that make sense? So, that being said, why I'm against it is because of this. People's careers should not be destroyed, especially if it's something that they did, say 10, 20, 30 years ago. And when they did it, it was something that was socially acceptable, right? And today we're going to talk about just one of those subjects that people are being canceled for. And that is going to be the topic of white people wearing blackface. Now, I think anyone born and raised in this millennia since the year 2000 would kind of look at that and be like, that's kind of silly and ridiculous. Why would anyone want to do that? Well, you'll see some examples here and we'll talk about it in further detail. But before we even get to that point, I simply wanted to jump in here and show you what the actual definition is of cancel culture. So as you go on here, I actually find it kind of interesting as well. If you look over to the right side of the screen, what is something you see? It says online shaming. It's very interesting that they actually have it set up this way, that they would actually have that on there to display while talking about cancel culture. I have a feeling they're trying to drop a hint there. Anyways, Wikipedia defines cancel culture as the act of canceling, also referred to as cancel culture. Describes a form of boycott in which an individual, usually a celebrity, who has acted or spoken in a questionable or controversial manner is boycotted. Now, again, I think people have the right to do this. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm not saying it's completely unacceptable. I'm just not a person who does it, nor do I think people should do it. Okay? And we're going to get to some examples here in a second as to why. But before we even do that, let's get over here to why part of the reason why this is in the news. First off, it's in the news because a number of celebrities have been canceled for doing just exactly what I was talking about, blackface. Which a lot of people don't have a leg to stand on, but it's not like they're doing it in 2020. They did it in 2005. They did it in 2000. They did it in 1990. They did it a long time ago. Now, that being said, I'm going to show you some examples of attempts at comedy and then some really bad attempts at comedy when it comes to blackface. But before we get there, another reason why this is in the news is because of a letter that was recently penned and published, and it was signed by a number of well-to-do scholars, like educators and just actors and artists. And that was a letter that was done. Here's printed here in Harper's Magazine. But it's free speech, open letter, and it talks about the controversy and how they're basically saying that, cancel culture should not be a thing. And there's a bunch of people who attach their name to this. Now, we could go through all this, but I'm not going to spend the whole half an hour doing this. I'd much rather talk about the actual real-life examples of how this affects people's lives. So, but what you will find interesting, hopefully it's on this version, then actually look at the very bottom. And, of course, it doesn't have the signatures. Of course not. Why wouldn't it? Why would it not have the code? Son of a... All right, so hold on a second. Let me see if I can find one. I don't know. For some reason, this looks like it might be on there. So there was 150 public figures who are on here. And these are just to name a few. This is like J.K. Rowling. Why is this thing fighting me? Margaret Atwood, Salman Rushdie, Noam Chomsky, I can't really say his name, Noam Chomsky, he signed it. I mean, a bunch of people signed it. course, it's not going to have a list. This is pathetic. See, this is why you do your homework before you get on the air. And actually, I did a bunch of homework. I just assumed that the other one, and all these were going to have a list of all the names. But apparently, I was wrong. I apologize. And of course, it's not going to have it on there because, oh, here we go. Signers. Here we go. This will probably have it now. So it's got, okay, well, let's see who else is on here. And this is, of course, not going to have the names, is it? Nope. Okay. Anyway, so there's about 150 publicly known people between, I said, activists, writers, artists, educators, mostly famous, but not necessarily all famous. Or at least not names that people would know in everyday homes, but anyone in certain circles would recognize these names. So, excuse me. That being said, a lot of people are freaking out about this letter because people are thinking that they're trying to take away the right to do cancel culture. And they're not trying to take away anyone's right to boycott people or to be mad at people or to call people out. They're just saying, you know what, we shouldn't be so quick to judgment, and the reason for that being is because in many ways, people are too quick to attack people. Now, I don't mean that there aren't people that aren't obviously needing to be condemned for the things they've done. And we'll see examples, like I said. I don't want to spoil it too quickly, but we're going to see plenty of examples coming up. I have 3 different examples of people who have all recently been called out for their use of blackface. Now, you'll see some who you'll look at it and be like, okay, I get that one, or other ones like, maybe I don't get that one so much. But they're all still being attacked, and they're all having their livelihoods threatened, their jobs threatened. And again, all these people have come out and apologized and said, I shouldn't have done it. It was, 15 years ago. It was 20 years ago. It was comedy or a bad attempt at comedy. And that, this is what people were doing at the time. And it's true. It's what people are doing at the time. But people are so quick to want to cancel everybody nowadays. And that's kind of the whole point of this letter that they wrote, because people are so impatient when it comes to anything they don't agree with, right? It's so funny. Like, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Okay, I'll just put that out there. But he is our president, and he's doing, in his mind, I think, the best job he can. That being said, there are so many people out there willing to attack him and throw him under the bus for every little single thing he did. Like, anytime something came up about, the Russians, well, obviously he's guilty. He's going to be thrown out of office. He's going to be arrested. Well, that did not happen, right? And every other scandal that's come up and every other thing they have attacked him on, they're so ready to say, well, this is the thing that has to bury him. This is the most horrible thing he's done. And it comes out that when the facts come out, that, yeah, it wasn't necessarily the best idea. And it might have been in poor taste, but it wasn't illegal, or it wasn't this, or it wasn't that. And people lose their minds over it. It's just, I think we're in such a point in our society, throughout our culture, that I don't know if it's because we have cell phones in our hands all the time now and computers and tablets that we demand that we have this instant justification for everything, or at least instant result with everything. But people want everything done now. I think it's part of the reason why we've had such a bad backlash with all these protesters and this fallout from the George Floyd incident. I think protesters came out, and they should have, and they did a good job doing that. But other people weren't seeing results fast enough, so they started freaking out and tearing things apart and burning them down. And I think a lot of that has to do with our technology. Again, another technology discussion. And just so you know, I am a fan of technology, as you can tell. I have computers, I have cameras, I have USB microphones, I have interfaces, you name it. But that being said, sometimes technology is a bad thing. Oftentimes it's a bad thing. And we're going to get much more into that. But I'm actually going to do that more on my other podcast, which is the Libertarian Hour, which premieres every Saturday at noon. So if you happen to like talking about such things beyond what we're talking about here, but more so in the eyes of how things function, how things should function, and how we can make things better, when it comes to anything: politics, society, policing, technology, entertainment. Well, why don't you come and join me there? Also here on the Kevin Lee Show, you can subscribe to those videos and or podcast, or you can go into any podcast that you have. Same you can do with this one. You can go on Apple, you can go on Google, you can go on Spotify, you name it. Any place that carries podcasts, you're going to find it. So it airs every Saturday. It's a 1-hour show. Just thought I'd plug it there because I had the opportunity. All right, so let's get into some of these examples because I don't want to run out of time. First and foremost, we're going to go to one that you've probably heard. It is about Jimmy Fallon, right? So here's Jimmy Fallon. Well, here's not Jimmy Fallon. Here's coverage of Jimmy Fallon. We're just going to watch a few minutes of it, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So I'll be quiet now.
Jimmy Fallon was all over, and he has now apologized for wearing blackface when he was on Saturday Night Live. So a 20-year-old clip of Jimmy impersonating Chris Rock recently resurfaced on social media, as it does. After a ton of backlash, Jimmy issued an apology on Twitter, calling it, quote, a terrible decision. He also said he was, quote, very sorry for making this unquestionably offensive decision, and thank all of you for holding me accountable. End quote. All right. So first off, Al, comedian.
So before we let them go any further, let's talk about that. They didn't show the clip. They didn't show the audio. But what he was doing an impersonation of another comedian named Chris Rock. Most people here have probably heard the name. And if you haven't, look him up. He's actually pretty funny. He's also an actor. But he was doing an impersonation. Well, when you do an impersonation, typically you want to look and act like that person. Hence why he was wearing blackface. Now, was it in bad taste? That's debatable. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. For the time, it certainly wasn't. People used to do stuff like that all the time. Whenever people would want to dress up like a woman, they put a wig on and stuff a bra and pretend like they're a woman. Same thing. Not much difference in reality. But that being said, you saw his apology there. He said, let's bring it back. So it's on the screen here. So I said, while on SNL, again, a comedy show, I made a terrible decision to do an impersonation of Chris Rock while in blackface. There is no excuse for this. I am very sorry for making this unquestionably offensive decision, and thank you all for holding me accountable. Now, regardless if you agree or disagree with what he said there, it was the perfect response, right? He admits to doing it. He admits that it was wrong. He admits that it was a poor decision. And he's basically saying that it was offensive. He doesn't deny that. And he says that it's good that he's being held accountable. He couldn't have played that any better. So agree or disagree with him doing that. What else do you expect him to do? His livelihood is being threatened. His entire career is being threatened. All, simply because he was part of a comedy troupe who was putting on a skit, who everyone a part of that group, including any black people that might have been a part of that group, had approved the skit as well. So keep that in mind. It's very important. Now, as far as what else they say, I actually didn't watch that much of the video, but let's just see what else they say about her.
Making me accountable, end quote. All right. So first off, Al, comedian, you are black. I know it's shocking to many of you.
Lay it on our viewers easy.
Let's slow down, pump the brakes. Did this apology work for you? Did he need to apologize? And did SNL need to sort of apologize too?
Well, it wasn't something that I was thinking about. And if we go back, look, I'm not condoning blackface. That's not really a hill to die on. What I'm saying is if we go back and start retroactively punishing everything, I mean, let's be honest, the Black Eyed Peas had a song called Let's Get R Word.
Yes.
And that was on the radio.
I danced to that at my bar mitzvah.
Yes, that was on the radio.
Yeah.
So like, are all those stations accountable? Our past and the way that we used to speak is embarrassing. And I believe we're all so embarrassed that we're all trying to go and try and retroactively clean up history. And I think that's a slippery slope to go down.
I agree. I also think Lorne Michaels and SNL have some responsibility.
Definitely.
Jimmy Fallon isn't the one to say yay or nay. Steph, you're nodding. You agree with that?
Absolutely. Obviously, I appreciate what Jimmy's done here, and obviously he's been called up on it and he's addressed it, which many celebrities don't do. They choose to kind of sweep things under the rug and hope that they go away. So I think it's great that he's come forward and said he's very sorry for something that he did do 20 years ago. But I agree with what Al said. I think we all do things, we say things that we don't necessarily mean, and that years later we look back and absolutely cringe on and think, why did we do that? I think, it's a very human being thing to do. We learn from it, we move on.
Yeah.
I was just playing that because I wanted to see what these people had to say, and I'm actually very impressed. I have no idea what this show is. It's called Daily Blast Live. I don't know if it's like an LA thing, a New York thing, a national thing, a local show, but I'm actually very impressed by everyone on there and what they had to say. Perfect. So now this is a great response. Now, part of the only reason why I actually played that whole response is because I don't really have responses for anybody else. The other people on here are primarily going to be simply, where am I at here? Oh, I hate how it does this. Why it does that? Okay, back to me. Sorry about that. My hotkey decided not to work. Probably should have just clicked on the screen over here. Live and learn. Again, I keep changing my setups every day, so I keep screwing myself up, so I don't know where the buttons are at. I've got keyboard cuts on one machine, different cuts on a different machine. I apologize. But that being said, I think that was a great response all around. And I think it's kind of silly that they feel like they have to bring on a black comedian to react to what Jimmy Fallon had to say and how he reacted, but I'm okay with it. I just feel like people. It's good to hear from someone that you think, but it's like, I mean, in a certain way, isn't it like pressuring him to have to be responsible for all black people? Isn't that ridiculous? Like, can't we all just be humans and men and women and young and old and decide what we like and we don't like and just say what our opinion is regardless of our color of our skin? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So moving forward, we're going to go on to... Okay, we're going to go on to Jimmy Kimmel. Now, he's also another late night host who recently found himself in hot water. And it's actually come to the point now where he has gone on hiatus. And he's not doing his show for, I think he said, 2 months? I think they blamed it on the coronavirus, but we all know why it really was. He gave a half-hearted... Well, it's been described as a half-hearted apology. Again, I'm not familiar with it, so I can't say for certain. That being said, what he's apologizing for is when, I don't even know what year, it had to be the 90s. He used to host a cable network comedy show with another guy named Adam Carolla. They're both basically comedians. And in this show, he did a skit. And it was meant to be funny. It wasn't necessarily have anything to do with being black, as far as I know. Just he was pretending that Karl Malone had seen aliens, and then he was talking about his encounter, I guess, with aliens. But it's a skit, and I'll let you watch it and make up your mind what you think. Okay? Let's switch back over here. Where are we here? Okay, ready?
Sometime at night, Karl Malone look up in sky and say, "What the hell going on up there? Do UFO live on other planet, phoning home like E.T.?" Karl Malone read on TV about white people getting deducted by aliens, sticking all kind of hell up their butt. And that's a damn thing. Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's going to be a spooky time. That's why Karl Malone say government got to step up and give 102% to keeping them little green men off this here earth. Because the day them dudes stick something up Karl Malone butt, that ain't going to be no good time for nobody, especially Karl Malone butt. Listen up, E.T. You better stay the hell back. Nanu, nanu. Until next time, this here Karl Malone.
Now, as you can tell there, absolutely... Get off of this screen now. You can tell that absolutely no one in that audience had a problem with anything he had to say, right? It was a comedy show, and they were doing a comedy skit, and he was pretending to be Karl Malone. Karl Malone is a basketball player. He happens to be black, and so he tried to look like him. Again, should they have done it? Was it in good taste? Probably not, but guess what? It's a comedy show. And I'm gonna put something out there for people out there who might be younger than me and don't realize back in the 90s, you could do stuff like this. Like, it wasn't risque to pretend to be somebody else and make fun of them or use them in a funny way. Just wasn't. It was done all the time. Sometimes they were make-believe characters. Sometimes they were real people, but it was done over and over again and again. And I think we all need to just realize that maybe that's not the way it is now, unfortunately, to some ways. But it was the way then. Now, that being said, these first two examples, pardon me, these two examples were potentially in bad taste, but they were done strictly for comedic purposes, and they were done on major shows. One was called The Man Show, and the other one was called SNL, or it's still called SNL, Saturday Night Live. Okay, so we have to get into the last example I have, because the last example I have is going to be something that's a little bit more in bad taste, I guess you would say. So this is going to be one in which there's a shock jock out of New York who's been around forever. He's very famous. His name is Howard Stern. Most people don't realize that he did this, because at the time it was so disgusting that I'm sure it came into the news for a short time, because even then this was considered to be bad. And you'll see why. I mean, I won't have to explain it to you. At least, God, I hope I won't have to explain it to you. And he's with another actor who used to play on the Jeffersons, and his name's escaping right now. Sherman. Oh, I can't think of his last name. But you'll see him. We could look it up later. But he does this bit, and in this bit, he uses foul language. It's obviously done strictly as blackface, not like he's pretending to be somebody else. Well, actually, he is. So what they're trying to do, I should describe that as well, because most people probably won't pick up on this unless they were around at that time. So there was a black and white couple by names of Ted Danson and Whoopi Goldberg who were together for a while. And in bad taste, Ted Danson had actually put on blackface to go to some, I don't know, it was a charity event or a party. I still don't understand it, but he did it. That being said, Howard Stern here is now playing the role of Ted Danson and putting on blackface. So put that in perspective. And I think this is absolutely a bit on comedy. But you'll see, at least I think you'll see the stark difference between those first two examples and this example. At least I hope you do. So without further ado, I'm going to play.
Besides, Whoopi done wrote everything I'm going to say here tonight, so it's all right. Ain't that right, you smelly nigger?
I didn't write that.
Well, you is a smelly nigger. I got some more jokes for your New Year's Eve party there.
You're not tired of this.
And don't be racially offended, because Whoopi done wrote them for me, okay? Here we go.
Go ahead.
Black hole.
Black hole.
You're going to love this. Tell her that. What do I loves most about the Whoopi?
Oh,
yeah.
That sure has great timing.
Hey, Robin, what does you call a black rocket scientist?
I don't know,
A
Ted.
nigger. Whoopi wrote it. Whoopi wrote it. Hey, did you happen to notice this?
No, what
this
is that?
This my mother, Mama Dancing. Why, she done work in blackface, too.
She must be very proud.
Yeah.
Now I know you really love me, Ted. You the man.
I tell you, you the man. What done happened to Sherman's career? It's really over the end. I want you to give us a kiss, you smelly coghead coon. I love
May
you.
I say something
Yeah.
here?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you can say whatever you want, you smelly nigga. Whoopi wrote that.
That's it, Ted. You didn't know I was going to say that. Whoopi had no chance to write it. I don't accept that kind of language. You can call her whatever you want, but you don't talk to me that way or I'll leave.
Well, don't let the door hit you on your big black ass, mama, on the way out of here. Now, where was I? Oh, yes. Now, Whoopi, you is a filthy nigga.
I didn't.
Besides...
Okay, so I think, at least I hope you can see a clear distinction between those first two examples and this example. Now, in your mind, depending upon your age and the way you were raised, there is an opportunity that maybe you think there really is no difference. That might be true to you. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but that could absolutely be the case for you. So, that being said, I hope that's not the case. I hope, regardless of your age, you'll see that there's a difference. Now, again, I'm not saying that the third attempt wasn't an attempt at comedy, because I think it was. But that was a far, far different example of what comedy can be, right? So again, these are two. Well, one's a radio guy, but he's also kind of an actor, and the other one's a complete actor. And they were trying to put this bit on, and they were doing it for a special, I think, for New Year's Eve. And for those of you who don't know or have never seen the show, the black woman that was speaking with them, looking on it from the monitor, that was one of his co-hosts named Robin. Again, I don't know her last name, but she went along with it. I mean, maybe she was even being honest at the end there to how offended she was being. I don't know. But needless to say, this was, to me, by far, I don't want to say it was unexcusable. If everyone was in on it and everyone agreed to do it, and they thought it was funny or shocking, and that's why they did it. I mean, the guy still has a radio show. The guy still makes millions of dollars a year hosting, and he's not even on the radio. He's on Sirius XM or whatever it is, and he gets paid millions of dollars a year. And I'm talking millions. And this had to be back in the 90s, probably. I mean, you can tell by the quality of the video how much things have changed, right? But yeah, needless to say, we're in a different time, right? This obviously I don't think was even acceptable for its time. But to say the other two examples, which were only a handful of years after this, were completely unacceptable, or people's careers should be destroyed over it, when this guy's career here, Howard Stern's, has not only not been threatened, he's actually getting promoted. They're trying to actually sign him really quickly to an extension of his contract so they don't have to worry about that headache about the Sirius XM being attacked for having him under contract. So they're trying to get him signed real quick for his extension because he's due to run out, I guess, at the end of this year. Needless to say, people like him still. Now, I'm not saying you should boycott. I'm not saying he's a terrible person. I have no idea what he did here. I don't understand why he did it. I don't know what kind of excuse he could have for doing it. Maybe he had one. I'll have to see if I can find an interview sometime and check it out. Maybe I'll do a follow-up on this. But, everyone needs to chill a little bit. People are allowed to make mistakes. People are allowed to do things that they're not proud of. People can regret things. That's how life works. And you'll realize this by the time you get to your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s and so on. You realize that the way you used to think or the way you used to act isn't the way that you think now. And we just have to keep that in consideration when we're judging people. Like, people do things that they thought was okay one day, and it's not okay another. It was okay when I was younger. It's not okay now. I didn't know better. I was naive then, but I'm mature now. See the difference? So before we decide to cancel anyone else, we should at least take time to pause and think really how bad this is, and when was it done, and why was it done. These are all things that we should be asking ourselves before we just react. At least that's my 2 cents. But it's just about that time now. So I'm going to say goodbye for today. Happy Thursday again. And we'll see you all tomorrow for our Friday show. So don't forget to download the podcast and share with your friends. And just hope you enjoy these. All right. Talk to you guys later. See ya.